Hello, everyone, and welcome to day one of Blue Talks Amplify Your Message. And the pattern that we're going with lately is I get to have fun with a co host, a different co host, every single day. So I want to introduce my new to me and new to you co host, Joanne Woods Young. Joanne, thank you for joining me on the very first day and knowing, not a whole lot about what's going on. That's fine. It's really casual. We have a lovely conversation with each other. Can you tell us a little bit about you and why you decided to be my co-host today?
Yes, sure. So it's great to be here with you, Laura. I've seen you, throughout the Blue Talks, and I've seen your sparkly personality. So you're perfect for this job. I wanted to co-host to see what it's all about here. I love meeting people who are involved in the Blue Talks community. So many empowering people that have great stories. I love part of it and hearing everybody's journey. So I wanted to come on and be a part of finding out more, learning about whoever is coming on with us today. So,
Mm. So then what is it that you do? Like, what's your background so that we know a little bit
that's
about
right.
your business as well?
Oh, sorry about yes. Okay, so I'm speaking to corporate offices, businesses, anywhere really that will have me on stress. So mental health is really at the forefront of everybody's mind now. After COVID, it
Mm.
really has amped up so much. So that is people really need assistance. People need to know there's a better way for them to look at things or see themselves, their lives, know that they have more control than they really realize. And I feel like people need to be empowered and inspired to live their best lives. So that's why I like to come in, give people some effective techniques, mindset shifts in ways that they can do things in a systematic way daily to help them stress less and to truly find their own reason for why they want to live their best life and how to kind of move them forward towards that.
I love all of that.
So
And
I
for
do
those who
that
don't
through
know,
speaking. I've done small
oh,
group workshops. Yeah.
there's a little bit of a lag. So for those who don't know, I talk about courageous connection.
Yeah.
It is
Okay.
everything that I am. So this is why I love stories. I love getting to know people and why they do the work that they do. And since this show is all about amplifying your message, I can't wait to hear the stories of the people that we get to interview and why they share what they share. So I'm going to bring up our first guest. Her name is Radhika, and I have met her before, but I'm going to get Radhika to share a little bit about you. Radhika, I want to start with a playful question since I already know you just a little bit. It's been a few years, but I know you a little bit. I want to know if there were three words that you would like other people to use to describe you, what potentially could those three words be?
Hmm.
I find that's a fun question. I love it.
It is the one, and I feel like someone gave me a heads up on this, and I didn't give it any
It was
thought,
probably me.
which is exactly where you need me to be.
Mm.
Um, I think I have this wacky balance of or dichotomy of
Ooh.
playfulness
Mhm.
and yet depth.
Yep.
So those are two that are coming to mind, and a third one would be love.
Ooh, playful depth and love. This is why we've connected. Very much my type of person. Now, why? Why would you say playfulness, depth, and love?
I think that's kind of who I've always been and who I am still and who I desire to be more of.
Mm.
Yeah. I think there's like definitely anybody who knows me knows like I love a deep conversation. I like to think about things in a bigger way. I'm not interested in status quo conversations. And sometimes maybe it could be a bit deep, And then on the other side, I think, I have a very goofy, nutty side that
Mhm.
I remind myself to allow to be there still more and more, and kids allow us to bring that back. And I think life sometimes as adults, it gets a little serious.
Mhm.
It was interesting. I did a meditation once where I, just for fun, decided to go down a hallway and have a conversation with my future self at 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and 20. And when I saw my 2-year self, and it was 2 years ago, um, I said to her, is there anything you want me to know to get to this point in like the highest, easiest, most flowy way? And I literally saw myself in a circular pit surrounded by a bunch of women that looked like either Tulum or Costa Rica. It had like that boho, new age vibe. And 2 years later, I was in Tulum with women in a circular pit. So it actually all manifested. But the word that she said to me when she looked in my eyes, and that's part of the exercise, you look into your future self's face, was playfulness. Be more playful, right? And I think it speaks to like letting go of the resistance, letting go of the stress. And I think somebody was talking about stress here earlier, right? Like just actually having fun, and bringing back that childlike quality and having depth in intention and vision and mission, but also bringing playfulness along. So I guess that's why I said I don't know if I've perfectly balanced it, but those are parts of me. Yeah.
I don't know. Have we ever perfectly balanced or had it all in harmony?
This is the
Maybe for a
$1 million
moment.
Who knows? I don't know.
But it's exciting to be on that journey and to go after the playfulness. I remember I did something similar, no traveling on my part, but I did have a meditation where I met my 6-year-old and tried to heal the abandonment and that kind of stuff with her. And she said all she wanted was strawberries, chocolate, and to eat both of those, but up in a tree. So I was like, fine, like, let's hang out in the tree. And I pictured her up the tree and I went to climb up the tree and she already had a version of herself next to the branch. And I was like, where am I supposed to sit? Like, who is this imaginary friend of yours? She's like, oh, I pulled my highest self out of me and set her on the branch next to me. Where do you think imaginary friends come from? And I'm like, wait, we could do that? Mind blown. And then I played with her for a year. So that playfulness really did come out in my life, in my business, all of that. So then my question for you is, how do you see yourself being that playful depth of a person, showing that love in the work that you do in your business?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm a divorce lawyer by trade, retired, right? I'm on what I call my radical sabbatical, where I had decided, along with my beautiful husband, to, with his support, to leave family law for 2 years and pursue my side hustle, which was a coaching and teaching practice that I'd started, working with lawyers initially and co-parents to help them find more ease and flow, right? So it had started to really turn into a thing in a big way in my heart, more than, in their hearts. And so I left law to do this full time. And, when I started teaching this stuff and working with these beautiful human beings who entrusted me with, their time, energy, and money, and who'd been coached by me informally, which is how this whole started. I used to ask, like in meditation or whatever you believe in, right? Like channeling, I would just tune into my intuition and say, like, what do they need from me? What else can I do? Like, how can I really do the best by these people? Might I be too woo-woo? I even said, like, am I going to be too, do I need to like put a lid on it? And the message I got was, no, you don't need to put a lid on it, because if they wanted someone else, they would be with somebody else. They're here to have a fully expressed you, and that's actually the biggest gift you give them. And they were like, have fun with this. Be light about this. They, when I say they, my intuition, my guides, whatever you believe in, it was like they already have enough heaviness. They already have enough weighty kind of heavy stuff that they're dealing with. They don't need more of that. So it's like, how do we bring the profound, like I teach meditation, I teach breath work, I teach different tools. How do we bring the things that are profound and deep, but in a playful, light way, right? Yeah. So I think that's where I see the balance, and also just being childlike, being silly. Like, when I teach, I swear kind of like a truck driver. Like, I'm just myself, you know what I mean? And really not trying to be anything but myself. Yeah.
I love that.
Oh,
I was like, I do the same thing. When I started talking about mental health, Joanne mentioned, mental health and stress as well. When I started talking about mental health, it's exactly what you said, Radhika, is they're already feeling that weight. And so they didn't want to read or listen to anything that was
Yeah,
extra heavy. And I used to think that being professional meant that being playful was not allowed,
that's right.
because sometimes they block it out. But really, people started to listen, people started to open up, people started to connect when I allowed myself to be authentic and be that playful side of me, because it balances out the depth. Like if you're feeling down here, I'm trying to look at my screen. If you're feeling down here and speaking down here, to be up here just helps to balance it, and it feels so good.
Yes.
But I want to know now, like a little bit more, why do you do this work? You said you were a divorce lawyer, but then you stopped doing that for a little while. First, what made you become a divorce lawyer? And second, why did you leave that to do the coaching?
Yeah, so great questions. I became a lawyer. I had the seed in me from a very young age in a very bizarre way. Like, because doctors, you kind of have a sense of what they do. Like kids, pretend to play doctor, but like you don't see 5-year-olds pretending to be a lawyer, because what the heck do the lawyers do
Sometimes
anyways, right?
I
But
have
I had this,
like one or two, but yeah, it's not very
right?
often.
Yeah, it's not something you really see often. So, but I always had this thing in me, and I was very, I guess, articulate when I was young, and I would make arguments, and I would have a position, and I would, stick by it. And my aunts and my mom and my people in my, world, when I was very little, would say to me, reflect back to me like, oh, like you cannot argue with this one. Like and it wasn't that I was, and just looking back at me as a child, actually very soft and calm. Like it wasn't bullheadedness. It was just like I was clear.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, I like that about myself, And so the seed was planted perhaps to that, or perhaps just, through my spirit. But I always had this thing that that's what I really wanted to do. And then as I got older, my dad, sat us down and we watched Gandhi, and I'm like, oh, he's Indian. He's a lawyer. Like, like he's into peace. Those are all themes that really aligned with me. And so over time, it was the dream. And then I fell off the wagon. Thought it wasn't going to be possible. I had PTSD and depression in my early undergrad years. It felt so far away. And then I met this individual one day, and who I was dating. And he said to me, what did you always want to be when you grew up? And I was like 22.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I always wanted to be a lawyer. And at this point, I was kind of in the business trajectory. I was doing that business undergrad at University of Western Ontario. And it was a very big program there. Like it was very, applauded. So I thought, okay, I'm on a track, even though I hated the Wall Street Journal and I hated everything. I didn't see how I didn't fit there. And when he said that to me, he's like, so what are you doing about it? And I thought, I don't know. And there was just such a kick in my ass in that moment. Went and started writing the LSAT, one thing after the other. And then got into law school, which is a holy miracle. There's lots of stories around that. But got into my top choice, went to Osgoode. And in my first year summer, I ended up getting a summer job with a family lawyer who was a full practitioner. Because most first year summer students won't get a law-related job. But I was like, I will work for a pittance. I just want something relevant. I don't want to go back to banking or waitressing for this summer. And so this lawyer and I applied to 40 places. He said yes. He ended up having a family law division. And I thought, oh, I don't want to do family law. It was the last thing on my mind. I was still had a business undergrad, and thought I would be like a civil litigator or a business lawyer. And I loved having people running around my office. And I had this moment I can still see where one of my clients, and this is not often that people bring their kids. And as I got more savvy, I actually suggested that they not be there.
Yes.
But there was a little girl with a long braid running around my office, and I can still see her flying through. And that was another seminal moment of I love this. I love working with people. And one of the clients said to me, you're my angel. You saved my family. Whatever I had done, I didn't give up. And I thought, this is so meaningful to be able to work with people and help people at such a challenging point in their life. So it's funny because it comes back to what you were saying earlier, right? What we were talking about, like the light and the depth. It's like you get to be light in a situation that's really dark or feels dark, right? And so, yeah, it just really aligned with me. And then I had also experienced loss and separation in many ways. I was, separated from my family at the age of 16, my brother, sister, mom, dad, all in like a 4-week period. And then lost a child when I was 31 years old at delivery. And all of that caused me to move through my own awakening process and to navigate loss and separation in my own way and to see what worked for me and how did I move myself through dark to light.
You can't see, but I just got goosebumps.
I saw you looking at your arms. I get those all the time. Yeah. So, it's like one thing that we want to do it. And of course, life will then give you opportunities to get better at it and deepen it and speak from experience. And so I wouldn't take back anything. I wouldn't take back a dark moment. And those weren't the last, right? But there's always the light on the other side. And so when clients used to come to me, I thought I could already see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like often it was the worst day they were ever having. And I could already see, you're going to get through this. And I held that light for them. And so when people said like, oh, how could you do divorce law? Like it's so heavy. It's so, you must take that home. I thought, I'm hovering in a different frequency and a different energy around the problem. It's like the Einstein quote, right? The solution of a problem is always at a higher frequency. So I felt like it was such an honor to be able to work with families at that time to help them shift and move even more powerfully towards the light that they wanted for themselves and for their kids. And because I'm like innately a coach, if you could tell, I was, my girlfriend called me like the woo-woo family lawyer. I was always like giving more tips than just the law, because the law I found to be very limited. It serves a purpose, and we need it to a degree. But, a lot of people, when we're lost, we become disempowered. And then we look to the system, we look to institutions to solve our problems.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And what I found was that, and what I understand today, and actually this quote was ruminating in my head this morning. I'm like, I got to post this. But it's when we're in conflict with ourselves that it shows up in our relationships. Right? And I'm not immune to this. Like, this is not me talking in the soapbox, like all of us, like when we are not happy with ourselves, we are not fully connected with our life, with our purpose, with our peace, with our self-worth, that is going to show up in relationships, and especially the longer term relationships where we have been taught by TV and family and society that, oh, you complete me. You're supposed to make me happy. You're the one that brings me happy ever after.
Yes.
And it's like, so now you're incomplete and you're looking for that from somebody else.
Are you just saying part of my story out loud?
Oh yeah, it's clicking.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think we've all been there at least for a few moments.
Oh, many moments, right? And it's that refinement of deciding who you get to be, and this is the depth, right? It's like, who do you want to be? Do you want to continue to react to the person? And here are two truths that I believe in firmly, and this is a lot of what I teach and practice from this morning. Like I'm like it's a lifetime of practice. Is when you raise the bar in a relationship and you show up with more heart, more love, more whole, more complete, it changes the trajectory of the relationship.
Oh yes.
And some people in that moment don't want to hear that unless they're ready, like you saying, oh yes, to take the seat of their soul, like take your power back and be the one to lift the relationship. And the other reality is that even if you couldn't change someone, who do you want to be?
Yep.
Are you going to let how somebody behaves dictate how you show up in the world? Because I think at the end of the day, that's all we take with us. We don't take our houses. We don't take our cars. We don't take our kids. We don't take anything of any value but who we became. And so the good news is at the very least, you become more. But what I've seen and what I started to see as I started to teach conscious co-parenting and other programs of this nature and practicing it in my own life was it takes two to tango. It takes one to lead.
Ooh.
Two to tango, one to lead. And the reason I loved working with co-parents in the beginning was because nowhere else in the world will you have a relationship where you cannot really end it.
Yep.
You hate the person's guts. You went from love to hate. Okay, I'm using quick, easy words, generalizing here. Okay, I understand that. I've done thousands of cases. I understand I'm generalizing. Okay, but in those cases that we're talking about where the conflict is high, love to hate, and you got little kids very often.
Yep.
In my practice, I would say probably 90% or more had kids involved, and obviously to varying ages, but often young, right?
Usually between grade 1 and grade 4.
Yours were?
No. I'm very much a people watcher, and one of my close friends taught me that. And when our daughters were going through elementary school, you can watch the behavior of the parents shift over the course of the years. And between grades 1 and grade 4 was the time where most of the parents were not even talking to each other.
Wow.
So you're like, ooh, who's getting divorced? Who's leaving? Who? Like, you knew it was happening.
Wow.
But they never spoke about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, working with co-parents was such an honor because I loved my clients and I saw how hard they were trying and I saw what they were up against. And because I had moved through my own dark to light moments multiple times,
Yep.
I believe very strongly and shared with them that this can become a portal of your own personal transformation if you so choose. If you so choose. And when you thrive, your children thrive. And so there's no more motivated of a crowd than parents, especially ones that are getting divorced in a way, because there's this level of like responsibility and guilt and wonder of like, are they going to be okay? Right. So there's a whole other layer of focus on the children, rightfully so. So I started working with parents, and then I started working with just kind of a general population of mostly entrepreneurs, but also professionals and stay-at-home parents. Like then it became a real mixed, beautiful bag of people who were like, we want to know how to do this.
Yeah.
And what I actually share is this. I take people through a journey where they get to build their most fabulous garden. And so what I say to the co-parents is the reason my program worked, I believe, and I didn't invent these concepts. I'm just sharing them, right? Mm-hmm. We're all just sharing these like universal truths. The reason I believe that it worked in hindsight, and it actually took me 4 years to really be able to say this to you, is they came to me to pull the weeds. And what I saw was they weren't actually looking to get just rid of the weeds. They're looking for their garden. They were looking to thrive. They were looking to come back into alignment, into their purpose, right? And so my goal was to bring them back to their joy. Remember, I started by saying, like, when we're in conflict with ourselves, it shows up in our relationships. Well, what does conflict look like in ourselves? Yes. Not remembering why I'm here, not feeling connected to my purpose, not feeling fulfilled in my day job, not remembering who I am, what my strengths are, and playing those, not taking risks and showing up big in the world.
Trying too hard in one area to perceive like I have value because I forgot that I had value over here. That's me reason. It's like, it's the same patterns, but at least we're catching it sooner.
Yeah. And also not having resolved our past trauma and our past wounds. Yeah. So, yes, we want to be in the present. And there's lots of teachers that I love who teach just from presence. What I believe is that what's worked for me and what's worked for a lot of my clients is when we can reconcile our past and we can get clear about our future, it gets easier to be present.
Oh, yes.
Because the past and the future are where the resistance comes. And when, the future, what I mean by knowing about the future is just, is your boat pointing in the right direction?
Yeah.
Right? And do you know where you're going and why? Are you fueled by a greater mission, a greater purpose, intention? Because then you can let go of the oars and you can get in your flow, right? You don't need to see how it all works out. In fact, in my life, every single thing I've ever wanted has worked out better than I've ever imagined it to be.
Nice.
In every category. In my home, the home we got, the car I got, the family I ended up with, the friends I ended up with, the job, the career, the office, the opportunities. So then how do we get there, right? How do we create more flow? And that's like what I call the thriving garden, right? So that's kind of what I do now in a nutshell.
I want to speak to that last part just for a moment, where you said that you have all of these things happening better than you expected.
Mm.
I'm not sure if your journey's like mine, but it took a detour where things were less than I expected well before they came back, and then catapulted well beyond my expectations. So
Yeah.
it's like every single time I had this idea, I wasn't quite in alignment, but I was close enough to start the journey. But then you kind of crash over here for a little bit, learn the things that you needed to learn so that you can come back and have things even further and even more awesome and abundant than they
Yeah.
were before. Does
Yeah.
that relate to you too?
Absolutely. And if you recognize that they wouldn't have gotten that good if you hadn't gone through the shitstorm,
Yes. Yeah.
then you'd never wish away the shitstorm.
Mm. I did that many times in the past. Like, I
Mm.
went to university, I took engineering because I was like, it's basically like architecture. Sure, we'll just do that. I ended the year second last in my class because halfway through, my plan that I had laid out was wrong. Thanks.
Mm.
So I was like, why? Why bother? Just, I'm going to go to class and that's about it. But I saw that as a failure. Went to
Mm.
college, took the architecture stuff that I exactly wanted, which was a much faster path. But then I realized that everything that I did in university had catapulted me forward. So was that really a failure, or was it a learning experience that
Yeah,
helped me get to where I wanted to be even faster and even easier?
absolutely. And listen, we all want sunny days and barbecues and roses and picnics, and I believe life is more of that than not.
Mhm.
That's been my experience, at
Yeah.
least. And I'd love to get more and more people there if that's not their experience. And I always say you don't really build character on a sunny day.
No.
You know, you don't. And one of my favorite quotes in the world is by Michael Beckwith, who you may have heard of.
Yeah.
He was in The Secret, and
Yes.
very famous
I
teacher. He's
know.
been on Oprah several times, and
Okay.
he has this famous quote that says, the pain pushes you until the vision pulls you.
Ooh.
And it's all obviously about our alignment, right? And getting us back on track and getting us where we were meant to be and what we came here to do. And I personally believe we all come here with a mission that's not perfectly crystallized, obviously. It's flowy and movable enough that you get to design it and amend it as you desire. But that you came here to be, let's say, chocolate. And then whether you decide to be chocolate mousse or chocolate cake or chocolate bar, or both, is up to you.
All of the above.
All of the above. And what I find is that, just where I'm at in my life at this point, I'm 42, lived a very colorful, full life of lots of ups and downs.
Mhm.
I find that, does it have to be pain? Like a lot of us wonder, like, does it have to be pain? Does it have to be contrast that pushes us back into this clarity of like, oh, right? And I think it does to a certain point until the vision pulls you forward.
Mm.
That's what the truth has been for me. And that's why I love that quote so much, because I can feel that. It's like, thank you, universe. I don't need any more lessons. Like, I'm clear about the path. I'm on it. I don't need a kick in my ass to get back on it. And if I ever did, I know I will get it. I know I will get the kick in the ass, right?
Oh, yes.
But so, and I think, a big part of the journey is meeting our basic needs first. And we have a lot of them, right? Like we need connection, and we need relationships, and we need our finances in check, and we need housing, and like all things that at points I didn't have, right? We need all of those things. And many spend their entire lives just organizing that. And that's totally fine. But there comes a point that if we can get there faster, we can build our nest a little faster and get into alignment and learn how to manifest our desires and have them exceed our expectations, then from that point, we get to give it back. We get to give it back to other people. And so that's kind of the phase that I've been in the last few years, is like, I feel like in all categories, I remember saying to one of my friends, it's like, check, 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 check. And it's not like a bragging moment. It's like this deep gratitude of, wow, like I have everything I could have ever dreamed of and more. Now, how do we get more people there? How can I give this back? What's the next big step? And it feels like a vision. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a couple things before I forget, and they were just profound for me. Earlier, you had mentioned the separation, and when I got the goosebumps, I'm going to tie it all in a second. It made me think of not just like divorce separation, but the parts of ourselves separation, the misalignment separation, the not even knowing who I am, let alone how to connect with other people separation. And so you're not just dealing with this finite relationship, you're dealing with the many facets of relationships.
Yeah.
And dimensions and like perceptions of relationships that we have. And so it's this constant coming of ourselves through that. And I love that you speak to that.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I think there's layers to connection, right? And, you know, that conflict within ourselves that we were talking about earlier, it's like, are we connected to ourselves? Are we connected to life, which I see as like being present, you know, being in the flow? Are we connected to something bigger than ourselves? So you could call that source, universe, God, Mother Nature, whatever you want, right? But like, no matter where you come from, you can be atheist to the most spiritual person.
Yep.
We are all spinning on a rock with gravity holding us down in the middle of a multi-universe, right? Like there's something really huge here. So are we connected to that? And I believe that we can have a deep conversation, that's literally how my journey started when I was 16. You know, I was homeless, and one of my mentors of 25 years, at that point, our mentorship had just started, and she said to me, okay, what are you going to do? Like, you've exhausted all your options of where you're going to live. Why don't you now have a conversation with Source? And I thought, she's crazy. I don't know when she heard what I said. I'm nowhere to go tonight. I was 17 probably by that point. And that actually started that journey. So it's connection with self, connection with life, connection with Source, and then connection with others. And I actually just taught a program called Option C, Coming Home to Love, on relationships. And it's literally the 4 weeks that we do.
Nice.
To then finally get to the relationships, right? People are there to want more in the relationships.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, we'll get to that after.
Yeah.
We deal with all these other layers of us feeling super connected. So yeah, I agree. I think it comes back to that self.
So then I'm gonna tease you a little bit and say the thing that seems crazy at first. So I'm one of those people that calls BS on the know, like, and trust. And I'm very proud of it now, and I'm very confident about it because of exactly what you said. Where if we're asking of something from somebody else, we have to do those steps before it happens. So if I'm asking my clients, my audience, to get to know me, get to like me, get to trust me, it's that journey of me doing that for myself first, then me doing it for them so that they can finally do it for themselves. And then it naturally happens for me.
Yeah.
There's all of those steps before it ever comes back.
I totally agree. And I think that it just turns out that way. Do you know what I mean? That if we're not embodying what we teach and what we did, you know, what we're putting out, it's just not going to stick in the same way.
Exactly.
It's not going to stick for people in the same way. And so my litmus test for every program I've ever run is, do I do this? Like, you know, and I have people telling me, Rad, you should teach a program on parenting, just like for all parents. And I'm like, okay, well, like, hold on. Do I live this? Like, I'm always checking with myself. And before I taught the relationship program, I was like, I felt the impulse, I felt the clarity. And I thought, I've helped people end relationships for so long. I would love to help people stay in relationships based on what I've learned and now understand. And there's nothing wrong with getting divorced if that's what you need to do. But there's a lot of people who are sitting on that fence of, should I stay? Should I leave? And they really want to stay, but they don't know how to bridge that communication gap. They don't know how to bridge the disconnection, right?
Yeah.
And so that's been a really great joy. And I thought, yeah, I think I am ready to teach on relationships. I feel like they're not perfect, but they're pretty darn close to perfect in my life. And even the little hiccups that happen, because we're human and they will probably continue to a degree.
Yeah.
They keep me feeling relevant to my clients. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they keep, like, okay, no, I need to have this right now, because you need to stay connected to the practice of it, right? And it really is a practice of being a conscious human being, which is why I named my business Consciousness with Rad. I feel like it's all about us waking up and becoming more conscious and aware. Yeah.
I actually started doing something, those moments that you just spoke about where we're going through the same thing as our clients are. It doesn't hit us as hard or as fast or as long as it used to, but it still happens.
Yeah.
I started journaling exactly how it felt, exactly what I was thinking. All of those false beliefs that I know logically are false, but I'm still thinking them right now. I started writing all of it down as much as I possibly could, so that when I came back to my good days, I had even more information about exactly how my clients are feeling.
I
What
love
I thought would be
that.
helpful, what I thought would be not helpful, like anything at all.
Yeah, I love that so much. Yeah, like relying on memory is one thing, right? But documenting things is such a beautiful thing. Yeah, and to just even see your own journey of like
Yeah.
how far we're coming. I always do love catching moments of an old journal entry. So I might tear a page out of your book on that one,
Yeah,
because
no, go right ahead.
yeah, I love that, because sometimes you don't want to have to go through it again. You're just like, right? It's like whatever you can do to solidify the understanding. And I find over time, that's the embodiment, right? Is like it goes from us learning from information and books and podcasts and people, teachers, coaches, all the things, movies, music, life, and then experiencing it, right? And that's really actually where life kicks in. It's like going through it and going through it over and over and over until it becomes second nature.
Yeah.
And that's the embodiment stage, where you can't really forget it now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
then,
it's toggling those two stages. Yeah.
yeah. So if there was one sentence that you needed people to take away from your story and your message, what could, there's lots, I know there's lots. What could that sentence be if you just had that one sentence?
I'm going to say this, and at the risk of sounding cliche, because I really, really,
It's all good.
this is the deep rod coming out. Every state of being that you've ever desired can be experienced from the inside.
Yep.
Every single state. Everything we're looking for on the outside, in people and money and things in life, in peak experiences, in the first class flights, in the whatever, all of that you want is like being offered to you on tap on the inside.
It's just a choice.
It's a choice, and it's a inward journey of exploration and connecting to your own power, right? And coming back into that alignment, getting clearing up the past, getting clear on your future, learning how to be more present. All of those things are required, I believe, to really be able to come into those higher states of being, like bliss and ecstasy and joy and peace. It's literally all there, like a buffet inside.
Yeah, it's not always an easy choice. There are some moments where it feels so hard to just choose happiness, or to choose something different, something that's up on that emotional scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the moment you realize it's a choice, that's the switch right there.
Yep.
Right? It's like, it's hard until I realize, oh, I just get to pick it.
Yeah. The example I love to give is, I'm like, just pretend I told you, oh my God, Rad, you just won $10 million. And in your mind, you're like, you believe it for a split second.
Yeah.
And then you're choosing not to believe it.
Yeah.
So that's the choice, right? It could be that simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And those are moods, and those are moment to moment choices. And then there's like these deeper states that we can enter. These deeper states. And that's why I love teaching meditation. I'm actually running my very first meditation retreat this summer in Toronto.
Nice.
Yeah.
In Toronto? Next time I visit Toronto, I'm going to have to come say hello.
I would love that. I would love that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So we have about 4 minutes-ish left. So
Yeah.
I want to know the different ways that you have chosen to amplify your message. I do know that you're a speaker. I mean, you're here on this show,
Yeah.
so that's part of it. Did you also do one of the Blue Talks live?
Yeah. I did a Blue Talk at Harvard last summer.
Yay!
Yeah. That was
Okay.
so much fun.
Yeah. And then were you also part of one of the Blue Talks books? Have you chosen to write?
Not yet. So I've put that off because I'm in the process of writing a book right now, and there was a little bit of overlap. So yes, Corey and the team were kind enough to allow me to push that a little bit out. But yeah, I hope to be in one day. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're writing your own book. So I mean, like, you're speaking and you're writing and you're getting yourself out there. Are there other ways that you have chosen to amplify your message?
Yeah, so I've been lately showing up a lot more on social media. I actually agreed to a 365-day Instagram challenge with a friend.
Nice.
She's like, "I dare you." I was like, "Oh God!"
I dare
I
you.
double dare you. And it felt like the right time. It felt like last year of my radical sabbatical was kind of like breathing in, I called it, where I just kind of like reset. Obviously worked and did things, and none of my work feels like work. I really need to find a new word for that. But this year felt like time to breathe out and to just, every day tune into like, what do I want people to really know? What could add value to people who are listening and anybody who's looking for this? And so, yeah, I show up there every single day. And then I have my programs, my group coaching programs that I offer on my website. And so, yeah, there's a bunch of different ways. And then I also have been working with institutions, which I'm really, really enjoying. I'm working with a couple of law firms right now.
Yeah.
And then I have a friend who's a doctor, and him and I are thinking about how to, who's somebody that was introduced to me, but we're looking to see how to bring more continuing legal education and medical education of this vein of like self-care and self-alignment to serve others in a better, higher way. So yeah, there's all kinds of juicy stuff going on.
I also have a couple projects that I'm thinking about that I would love to connect with you on
Amazing.
afterwards.
Okay.
One of them is a speaking opportunity, and I have another one which is about awareness, self-awareness. So you and I should connect again afterwards. But how do we reach you? How do we go find you?
Yeah. So everything in my life these days is consciousness with Rad. So my IG handle is consciousness with Rad. Of course, I picked the hardest spelling word in the dictionary, but you'll find it. And then my website's also consciousnesswithrad.com.
Consciousness with Rad. People should just write notes for me in the chat. I'm usually the one, in the rooms making all the notes. It's different.
I love that. I didn't even realize, we were live on this one. This is the first podcast I'm doing where we're live. So hi to everybody.
Really?
So cool. I love that.
Yeah, that's why I put up the quote earlier where Darlene was like, I love what you're saying, and she feels it really deeply.
Oh, I love that, Darlene. Yeah. Thank you. That's awesome. This is very cool.
And was there anything else that you wanted to make sure that you said before we say goodbye? So long.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So I think the final point that I really love making for people is that you're closer to where you want to go than you think. You're so much closer to where you want to go than you think. And so really it's not having to get on a plane and, meditating with a monk for a year. It's not like a head transplant. It is small little changes that you're making where you're tending to your garden, right? If we just spent, Laura, even in the most obscene looking garden full of weeds, just 10 minutes a day, you and I with gloves on, 10 minutes, what would happen in a week? What would happen in a month, right? And it's the same thing, so every little step you take is so huge. The key is taking the steps, and the key is loving on yourself when you forget. Building habits is a really challenging thing once we're grown adults. We're a series of wired patterns. And, Dr. Joe Dispenza says we're like freight trains moving in one direction. So you move the freight train, right? But it can be done. And I've seen people get drastic results doing work with me, not because it's with me, because I gave them powerful tools with a very specific formula. And you can find there's so many resources now in the world for this. But what I saw was mind blowing. What people did in 6-8 weeks has changed what I believe is possible. And it was all small steps. So you are so much closer than you think, and just believe in yourself, find the right resources, take one step this week take a different step next week, layer them on, you know, a couple minutes here, a couple minutes there, and watch your life change. That's what I would say.
I think I'm going to use that as my next question. Cough, Renee, cough. Um, or maybe later in the week too. Like, what is this thing that you're so close to and you're just not quite there yet?
Yeah,
That'll be
yeah.
fun.
I love that. And sometimes people feel like they're so far from it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's right within their reach. You know, I always say, like, I teach people how to create the new formula in their life with all the ingredients that they already had. Like when I teach, I'm always like, tell me what the answer is. Tell me what I don't even tell them. I'm like, you tell me what the answer is. And they all say the same thing. And I'm like, there you go. You already had it. So now take this, add this, and now you have a cake, right? It's like flour plus sugar plus eggs plus baking soda, right? It's like you have everything that you need. Maybe you were missing one ingredient, or you were doing the things in the wrong order, or you weren't putting as much of an ingredient, but it's tweaking. You're just tweaking things in this self-development work. And you will go into an area of your life where life exceeds your expectations in every category. I think it's absolutely possible. I love it.
I love this so much. And it was so good to see you again.
It was so good to see you again as well.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
Thank you. I will reach out afterwards. I'm going to bring our next guest on, but we will all see you soon. So,
okay.
Bye, Rad.
Amazing. Thank you, Laura. Bye, guys.
Bye. Okay. And apparently I am by myself. Yay, tech issues. Double checking. Yep. Okay. So it is totally me. I'm going to bring Renee up onto the stage with me. And we're going to play together. Just you and me.
You and me. Okay, perfect.
What a day. Okay, so I want to know first off, what does your sign say? I love that you are my mom. Is that what it says?
Oh my gosh. I was like, are you talking to me? Yeah, it's not a sign, it's just a little thing from one of my kids at some point. So it's yeah.
But they're always like cute quotes behind people. I always want to read them, and I'm like, why are they meaningful for you? So
yeah, right.
I love that you're my mom.
Yeah.
So I do want to ask that question that Radhika just had mentioned. Like, to get to know you a little bit, I'm gonna ask, what is something that you're so close to that you just haven't quite gotten there yet? And then we'll start the conversation there.
Yeah. Business wise, it is.
Sure.
So I don't know if you want business or personal, but
Whatever you want to share.
yeah, business wise, it is getting a group coaching program going for teens so that I can reach more of them. So I'm like right on the cusp. I know I am. And so that's the next step. And personally, I mean, I think I'm actually doing things are pretty good personally. So I've done a lot of work in that area, and we have we have an exciting year personally. My oldest daughter's getting married in June. My youngest daughter just graduated college and she's going to graduate school. And so, and we're actually, her and I are going to Alaska on Thursday to celebrate her. And so, yeah, things are pretty good personally at the moment. Good year. So no complaints there.
Nice. Oh, I love all of that. Where you kind of have this mix of, well, one part of my life is up here right now, another part's kind of a bit lower, and we're doing our best to go with the flow in each of those areas. So I love that you had mentioned that you like to work with teens as well. My co-host who tech issues can't get back on. She had mentioned that she liked to work with teens as well. So I like references, I like patterns, and so I like to highlight those. What is it about the teens that you want to make sure that they feel supported?
Yeah, so that's my business. My business is Teen Esteem Academy. I taught high school for 18 years, and so I saw a lot of kiddos fall through the cracks. And we raised 3 kids of our own, our girl, boy, girl, and they're all in their 20s now. But when our son struggled all through school. He was the fall through the cracks kid. So I saw it in my students. I lived it with our son. And so now I work with families because I'm not in the classroom anymore. And so now I work with teens and families on that mental health piece, that self-esteem, self-worth, self-belief, all of that stuff, which I'm super passionate about.
Oh, nice. So why are you super passionate? Is it just because of your teen, or were you also a bit of that type of student yourself?
No, I think it's a mix of everything, but I think it's, I mean, being a teacher and being in the classroom for 18 years, I saw a lot of kids fall through the cracks, not getting the
Yeah.
support they needed. And I was always that I taught high school math, but I was always that
Oh,
teacher
math.
that put like quotes on the board, like the corny quotes on the board.
I loved
And so
those teachers.
I feel like I was always coaching my students, but I
Yeah.
didn't know that it was even a thing back then because I always
Yeah.
was putting the quotes on the board. Because I taught high school, we had those real life conversations at prom time or at what's the thing in the fall when they have the football games? I'm drawing a blank.
Oh, I
What
don't
is that?
know. I'm Canadian. We don't do that.
Oh, you don't do that. Okay. Well, there's a big school thing in the fall, and I'm just drawing a complete blank. But so it's the times when the kids get together and do activities like prom or homecoming. Homecoming is what I'm
Oh,
thinking
okay. I was
about.
like, I don't even know. I thought of the word. I'm like, I don't even know what homecoming is. Is that prom? I don't
Yeah.
know.
It's just a big dance at the end of football. It's a fall thing. But it was
Oh,
during those times that the kids, would be out partying or having these big events. So I always
yeah.
had the conversations with them, the
Mhm.
real life conversations about drinking and driving, about texting and driving when that became a thing.
Ooh, yeah.
And so those are my favorite like I love math, like I love it. It's so fun for me.
Me
But
too.
my biggest memories are the kids and the conversations I had with them when they were
Mm.
struggling, the real life conversations, or when they were just struggling. I lost a student to brain cancer. I had student who lost a sister to murder. Like I had kids from that would be bussed in from the city. So I have taught kids from all walks of life. And when you get past whatever's going on the outer, they're all the same on the inside. Even the kids that come from money, they're all the same on the inside and they all crave the same thing to be seen and heard and valued and understood. So
Mhm.
those connections that I had with teens in the classroom were the most meaningful as far as knowing where I truly impacted kids. I mean, some of my ex-students, I'm still Facebook friends with them now. They have babies, but they'll come back and
Aw,
say, you're the only one that saw me. And so that's it. Like a lot of kids today feel that same way. It's
yeah.
really hard to be a teen in today's world. They have a lot of negativity at them. And from what the kids tell me, just getting through the school day, there's so many negative people and so many negative micro messages coming at them.
Yeah.
And so that is the reason behind. And then our son, of course, he struggled. He has some other challenges too, but he struggled all through high school and I should say forever. He always struggled to make friends. He always struggled to fit in. He was just that kid. And so, and it impacts their self-esteem. But I always tell like my students and my clients now, like no one has a right to make you feel less about who you are. And it might be lonely for a while when you don't have those friendships. But if you like yourself during those times, it's going to make, and I've coached kids through that where they've gone for months really being lonely and the socially, but then they've come back to me and said, I actually like myself. And
Aw.
so it's that piece of it. And so it's a mix. I was a shy kid too. Like I always had friends, but I was shy and uncomfortable in my skin. So I can
Mhm.
relate in that way. So it's just a mix of everything. Like it's been me growing up, it's all the years in the classroom, my own kids. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so I think that it's just more important than grades. And that's coming from a teacher, like that self-esteem and self-worth. And so it's more important than grades.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard for parents too to coach kids in today's world. So I work with families and the teens. That was
Yeah.
long-winded, Laura.
No. I love learning about you. I love hearing your passion. And it made me want to take a moment to just say thank you to you as a teacher in a different way today, and you as a teacher in a different way before, and all the teachers out there who are like formal high school teachers or
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
because there's always been just that one or more teachers in our lives who have taken the moment to treat us like human beings, to
It's
actually
true.
care about us, to see us, hear us, and understand us. A couple weeks, I teared up because a couple weeks ago, one of my favorite teachers had passed away, and I'm planning a
Mm.
reunion for the school. It's
Aw.
been 20 years since I graduated and 20 years since the school closed. God, I
Yeah.
feel old right now. But I wanted to say hi to some of those teachers and let them know those small moments that they had with
Mhm.
us have changed us
Yeah,
in this way.
that's
And
right.
I remember a moment with him where there was this thing happening where I kind of showed him up in the middle of class. He's like, "Oh, you think you're so good? You teach that half the class. I'll teach this half the class, and we'll see." And then
Yeah,
I won, and so he's like, "You need to see me after class." But it was
right,
a loving way, and because of
right.
that, it has made my trajectory. So it's like
Yeah.
those moments are golden, absolute
It
golden.
it is, and it can be just one moment. It can be just one person
Yep.
seeing through your mask because the kids, they all wear a mask,
Oh yes.
you know, we all do. Everyone does at some
Yep.
time or another in their lives, but teenagers and tweens especially, they go through life wearing a mask just to fit in, and a lot of times it's really uncomfortable for them, and they they give up their own values to fit
Mhm.
in, and then they have inner conflict, and then it comes out as anger or
Yeah.
sadness or whatever that is, but they don't even know because they aren't taught the tools
Yeah.
to embrace who they are and or even recognize what's going on. It's not taught in the schools. In most schools, maybe in a handful of schools, but in most schools, those skills aren't taught, and those are the skills that are going to get them through life. So yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. It takes
Just
one
one moment.
teacher, one adult, one person to say, "You know what? You are good enough exactly as you are, and you don't have
Yeah.
to listen to what anybody else says, regardless of any experiences in your life until this point."
Yeah.
And it's super powerful. So, yeah, love what I do. I'm lucky.
Yeah. Can you shine a light for us just a little bit on what are some examples of how life would look if you are one of those students who fall through the cracks, or maybe if you are around a student who you didn't notice was falling through the cracks? Like, I'm looking for any sort of red flags or milestone moments, just something to help us recognize what that might look like.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for teens to recognize it in
Yeah.
another teen unless it's, like, really out there because teenagers by nature, they're self-absorbed, and I don't mean that in a bad way, I mean it in it's the only time in our life when you only have yourself to focus on, and
Yeah.
your job is school. So you don't and your brains aren't developed. So you
Yeah.
don't have emotional regulation, self-awareness, you have a lot of impulsivity. So for kids to recognize it in kids, it can be hard unless you're that really empathetic kid that really kind of picks up on that stuff.
Yeah.
And you're maybe a little bit more mature where you can see the big picture. But for adults, I always tell the families and the parents that I work with always that what you see on the outside is not always what is. So
Mhm.
when you have a kid that's angry, that's the tip of the iceberg. There's more to it. When you have a kid that's lazy or unmotivated, there's a reason for that. You got to get below the surface of what you're seeing. And to do that, you got to have a good connection with your teens because I will also always tell parents, teenagers want a good relationship with their parents and they want to talk about their stuff. You know, I'm not doing it now, but for a couple of years I did a monthly class with the teen courts, and it was a Teen Esteem Academy boot camp, and these kids were assigned to come to my class. And so they would walk in a little bit hardened, and I'm talking kids
Yeah.
anywhere from 11 to like 17. They would
Yeah.
walk into this, boot camp hardened, like they're required to be there. Who wants to be there? But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not kidding. Within 10 minutes of knowing they were in a safe space, they were sharing their stuff because they felt valued and seen and heard and not judged. And it can be hard for parents because we're in it emotionally. And I can
Yep.
say that as a parent, when our son was going through it, I think I did a pretty good job because I was in the schools, but I also didn't have all the tools I have now because I hadn't
Mhm.
gone through coach training yet. So it would be interesting to be able to go back to my son's life with what I know now and see if anything would change, but it also might not have because of his own insecurities. He has Asperger's and ADHD, but because of his insecurities and other challenges, he took the drug route, which a lot of kids do. And it got really ugly for a while. Our house was pretty chaotic, but, and you can't compete with that. No matter
Mhm.
how much you can't compete with that. So we got him, he got support, and we actually put him in a program, but it was more of a coach-based drug program. He quit
Okay.
after 3 months, but never went back to where he was. And that is the power of coaching. It's very much forward progress. And I'm not anti-therapy at all. He did therapy for 4 years. I mean, I'm not a medical professional, and many, many, many kids need a medical professional. So I recognize the difference.
Yeah.
But for the right family and for the right kid, coaching is such a strong modality of support and a shift in mindset and shift in energy. And at my core, I'm an energy leadership coach, but I also have some NLP background and some other stuff too. But
Yeah.
it's all about shifting the lens through which you see the world. But kids have to be taught that it's not innate. And so they've got to be taught the skills. And so again, to answer your question, it's not always obvious what's going on. And so parents also need to be made aware of some of those signs that anger isn't always anger. Anger could be insecurity, it could be feeling betrayed, it could be low self-esteem, it could be low self-worth, it could be feeling inadequate. And all of those words have come up with the teens that I've worked with that have been so-called angry. And sadness could be more than that. It could be something that requires a medical professional, like depression or whatever, but it could also be friend stuff that has them feeling really insecure and frustration. There's so much more to frustration and overwhelm, and all of those big emotions
Mm-hmm.
is the tip of the iceberg, and there's so much more below the surface. And when you can get to that, then we can start unraveling the stories and shifting the lens through which they see the world and shifting their mindset. But not every kid is going to be willing to share that with their parents. Some will. We have 3 kids, and one of our kids was super open, and Nick, our middle child, Nick, like didn't say much at all, and Kelly was kind of like, on the cusp. So every kid is different, even when they're raised in the same family. And some kids need somebody else to talk to, which that may be a therapist, or it could be a sports coach. It could be a life coach, like what I do, but somebody. Like, I just feel so strongly that every teenager and tween needs a trusted adult that to open up to. Like, I think every kid could use that because they have so much going on. And it's great when it's the parent, but it isn't always, and that's okay too, right? It's just not saying that you're not a good parent. It's saying that that's their personality. And a lot of kids too have told me, I don't want to burden my parent. So they will not share things because they don't want their parents to worry. So they'll just internalize, and that's so not healthy or good for their mental state. And so, yeah, so that was an answer plus a whole lot more.
It's all good. It reminds me of a lot of the types of conversations that I have with my daughter, because she's getting to the age where I had a very difficult time in my teenage years, and I have this fear that if I'm not paying attention, she may go down the same mental health road. So
Right.
I had just written about the 7 times I almost died, and one of them was in
Mhm.
grade 9. So
Mhm.
she's not there
Yeah.
yet, but I'm like, I need you to be aware of my past and why I worry the way that I do,
Mhm.
because I'm going to be hyper aware in these areas for you.
Right.
And I also
Right.
understand that I'm not always going to be the one that you want to talk to about things, even though I know that she knows that I'm here for her. I'm like, if you
Right.
need somebody else, like, please talk to dad, please talk to
Yeah.
Grammy, please talk to your school guidance counselor, like whoever it is,
Right.
go right ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so important that kids, and that's what they need from their parents, really, is that safe place to fall. And it doesn't mean that they need to share everything with you. And the older that she gets, the less she's going to share with you for a period of time, because they're going
I
to pull
know.
away. And but we want that for them. We just, if as parents we can keep the perspective that this is what we want for them. We're trying to raise independent young adults. We want them to pull away from us, and we have to allow them to fail. And
Yeah.
fail in my book is find and achieve important lessons. And we want them to have those failures while they have a safe place to fall within the home. It's so, so important, because we learn the most through our mistakes and our quote failures. That's where we have the most growth as human beings. And Yeah. And so, and for you too, having had, it sounds like a past where you struggled, that
Very
might be
much.
hard for you to allow her to fail in some areas, but it's so important because also when we allow our kids to fail, we're giving them the message that we trust you to get back up. We're here from you for you, and it's okay to make mistakes, and it's important that you make mistakes. I always tell my teens that I work with, I love mistakes. I love them because that's how you learn from them. And let's dig into those mistakes or failures and see what we can get out of it because we're going to get something out of it.
Yeah.
And you're going to come out the other end just feeling proud of yourself for how you handled that once we work through it. And if you didn't handle it great, then we're going to go through the ownership piece. How do you hold yourself accountable, and what's your piece in the pie and taking ownership? Because another piece that I really work with teens on is the idea that everyone is a leader, either by choice or by default. And most teens don't see themselves as leaders unless they're in leadership positions, like captain of a club or a captain of a team, or the yearbook head, or whatever that may be. They associate leadership often with roles, the roles you play. But the truth is that while they don't have control over everything, everybody has some control in their life. There's nobody else, not even our parents, that can make us think a certain way. You have control over your mindset, and you don't have to believe what anybody says if it doesn't make you feel good or serve you. And that is no one has a right to make you feel less about who you are. But again, this stuff isn't taught. And so that's what I do. I teach all this stuff to kids. I help them tap into their leadership potential and see themselves as a leader and rewrite some of the stories that are sitting in their brain, bringing them down right now, because the world is going to chip away at our self-esteem, or try to. And it's going to be successful in some areas, especially during those younger years, but it doesn't have to have a deep hold on us. We can rewrite those stories. And so, yeah.
One of the other things that I used to tell her, because she was really young and she would get bullied at school and she would fall through the cracks in some ways and excel in other ways. It's like,
right.
It feels like there's just so much going on for these kids that I would remind her, those kids that came up and would be angry with her, those kids that would come up and want her to do their work for them. There's always something behind that. You don't know what life at home is like. You don't know what life in their brain is like. So I'm like, whatever they're feeling, make up reasons. I'm like, if they're angry, what do you think is going on emotionally? We're not trying to put actions in there for them, but what do you think is going on emotionally before that? They're probably sad. Not necessarily, but probably. And then why are they sad? Because maybe they feel abandoned, or maybe this, or maybe that. And if we keep going down, there is a positive emotion there that they're lacking and that they're seeking. And most of the time it's love. So I just kept telling my daughter, you don't know what's going on in your head. You don't have to say it out loud. Send them love.
Right.
And then from that place, now respond to them.
Right. Yeah,
And
it's true.
that changes so much.
Yeah, because bullies, that's what I always tell kids too. And I've worked with kids who are bullies, that they've admittedly said, I'm the bully. And I always ask them, how does that feel? How does it feel when you bully someone else? Does it feel good in your core? And every time they say no, and it's their own hurt and it's their own pain. And I always tell kids who are being bullied that they are hurting so deeply, because when we feel good about who we are, we don't bully another person. We just don't. If you feel good about who you are as a person, you don't get anything out of making someone else feel worse. It doesn't mean that you don't ever make a mistake and say the wrong thing and inadvertently hurt your friend's feelings. Like, we all say the wrong thing from time to time. We're human beings and we're going to make mistakes, and things are going to come out that we didn't mean. But that's different than bullying. That's different than actual, like, purposefully putting someone down. And yeah, bullies are in a lot of pain, like a lot of pain, because I've worked with them, and it's such a deep-seated pain that they need a lot of help. And a lot of that has started way back in their childhood, and a lot of that is happening in their home in the current moment, or it's where they live. I mean, I have taught students who lived in the like the ghetto of the city, and they were surrounded by gangs where they lived, and then they come to school and they're supposed to, expected to behave a certain way. And it's until you get into those conversations with those kids that you really realize the extent of their life when they leave school. Like for them, school was safe because what they're going back to was really, really rough. And so, yeah, there's a lot of stuff, whether I'm coaching bullies or the kids that are being bullied. Like neither is good. Neither is fair. No kid should have to feel like they have to bully to have that much pain. And no kid deserves to get the brunt of the bully. And so there's just so much on both ends when it comes to that. But that's why it's important that kids have someone to talk to.
Yeah, definitely. So if there was like one thing that you needed people to take away from this idea of kids falling through the cracks, what would you want them to feel, to know?
Am I talking to the kid or the parent?
Either or.
Yeah.
You need
For the
somebody
kid,
to take away something.
yeah, my message for the teens and tweens is always, nobody has a right to make you feel less about who you are. Nobody does. Not parents, teachers, peers, social media. No one has that right. So don't give away your power and allow anybody to make you feel less about who you are.
Yeah.
Because the only person that has control over your mindset is you. So if someone says something like, and I always use this example, well, I use this example a lot with teens. Suppose you're a teen or tween and you saved a bunch of money for a pair of really expensive tennis shoes, and you saved it up, you worked hard, you go to the store, you buy them, you're so excited about them, you go to school, you wear them, like you're feeling good. And then somebody says something to you about them, like, oh, I can't believe you spent so much money on those shoes. And then you're like deflated. And all of a sudden you start questioning and you think, I'm never going to wear these shoes again. That's because you allowed that person to impact how you feel about yourself. And no one has a right to do that. So what if no one likes if nobody likes your shoes, but you love them, that's enough. So the message to teens is that no one has a right to make you feel less about who you are ever. Nobody. And you are already enough. You already are. You have so much within you, but so many kids don't see that. And then my message to parents is always, what you see on the surface is not always what is. Because as parents, a lot of times we take things personally, and we think if our kids act a certain way, it means they don't respect us, or they don't love us, or they don't want to spend any time with us. And 99.99% of the time, that's not true. There's something else below the surface. And maybe your kid needs help. Maybe they need extra support. Maybe you do as a parent, because a lot of times as parents, we get triggered. And when we get triggered, we meet emotion with emotion, which never works. But the truth is that our triggers are 100% about us. It doesn't matter what anyone else did. If we're triggered, it's because of something within us. And it goes way back, and you have to dig deep sometimes, like really deep, but there's some core wound. There's a core wound that you have not, that within you, that is not yet resolved. And that's why you're being triggered. It's not about your teenager having a smart mouth. I mean, yeah, that's annoying. And I'm not saying it's acceptable, but if you get triggered to the point that you go from 0 to 100, there's something else going on within you. And it's not bad. It just means there's something that needs resolved within you. And what a gift to yourself to do the work to resolve that pain within you. Because anytime we work on ourselves, it's a gift we give our kids, because you are the biggest role model for your kids, and they're always watching you, observing, internalizing. So if you don't treat yourself right, if you are not willing to even do the work on yourself, if you need it, they're watching that. And the micro message is often that I shouldn't work on myself either. And I have my own podcast, but I did one called Heal Yourself, Help Your Teen. And I just think it's so important, because you are their biggest role model. And when we heal ourselves, we're giving our kids the message that I'm important to heal myself. And guess what? You are too. So when your kids, or my kids, I can say, have watched that within me. I'm like a I'm a little obsessed with the whole self-help thing. Like I love it.
Yeah.
So I'm always doing stuff, but my kids are in their 20s now and they do that too. They know that it's okay to put yourself first and do the work on yourself. Not only okay, but important. And I love it. I love it. Like my one daughter is struggling right now and she's doing a little bit of therapy. And I'm like, that is amazing. And she loves it. She's like, yeah, I just have some stuff to work out. And I'm like, that's amazing. Because mental health support is the same as physical health. We would go anywhere for a broken arm. Why not go anywhere for with a mindset that needs some help? Why not? Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you, whether it's a mental health illness, a mental illness or a mental challenge. Like who cares? It's the same as physical. And I think that is shifting in teens today. I think that is shifting. We're getting there where people are more open to talking about the mental health piece, because it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you that's not fixable. It just means, our mental's a little cracked right now. So let's get some help on that because it feeds everything.
Definitely. It's a little misguided for sure. I'm the same way. It's like when I'm going through something, I love to learn and I will learn every possible thing from all these different areas. And one of those tools that popped up for me lately was reading Akashic Records. For some reason, in the moment and over the last year or so, I've been drawn to it. I don't know why. I don't really know a whole lot about it, but it's one of those tools that resonates with me. So let's go try it. And then my daughter, she invented something called the Good Day Cookie back when I had PTSD. So she was like 2-ish, something like that, 2 to 3. I came home one day and she offered me this imaginary cookie in her hand to make me feel better because little kids, they like cookies, they feel better.
Right.
And I'm like, that's a wonderful tool. You're feeling like crap. Imagine the cookie, just choice, as Radhika and I were discussing earlier.
Yeah.
We can choose how we feel. But then you
Yeah.
also mentioned like standing up for yourself. I used to read the story Stephanie's Ponytail by Robert Munch to my daughter all the time. And if you've never read the story, viewers or Renee, it talks about this girl who wore her hair the way that she wanted. And then everybody copied her or they'd make fun of her.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, it's my ponytail and I like
Yeah.
it. So I used to do that with my daughter. Whatever she was being made fun of, I was like, well, it's your pat back and you like it.
Yeah.
So it's just like these fun ways to play and learn about mental health and to learn about personal development so that you can be that confident teen, that confident human being that we all need.
Yeah. And it's not easy and it takes work, but it's 100% doable. You know,
100%.
whether for the parent or the teen, it's doable. They just have to be taught the tools so that they have something to tap into when the going gets rough. And it's true. Like we can choose our emotions, but also and I always teach the kids this too. It's great to honor you always honor your emotions. If you're angry, be angry. You're a human being. If you're sad, be sad. You're a human being. Like we have to honor our emotions. Some kids, and one girl I worked with, she was 15. She was taught growing up not to honor her emotions. And the first 3 months that we talked together, she cried on every phone call and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I said, because you need to let this out, like honor our emotions so that we can get it out, so we can do the work. And what we don't want is to get stuck there. Like if you're stuck in anger or if you're stuck in sadness, if you're stuck in frustration, that's just, it's a cue that I need some help. And I said, our emotions are a silent messenger.
Yes.
Something's going on. They're just a silent. If we are willing to listen to them, there's a message there for us, whether we're adult or a teen or a tween, like whatever. But if we're willing to, but it's easy for kids because they don't have emotional regulation to get stuck in the muck. And so we really have to work on that awareness piece, bringing that to them. And, you know, I just created, and it literally just went live. Like it's just going live right now. Like yesterday, I made it live. Ish, I should say. But I created a course called Teen Esteem Activator. It's hybrid where they can do it on their own or they can kind of, and I also have some call times set up starting in July. But module 1 is all about self-awareness. Module 2 is self-belief, and module 3 is self-confidence. And there's a little workbook that goes with it. It can be done, it's fillable, it can be done online, or it can be printed. So there's like a lesson, I hate to call it that. It's a journey for every week. But the kids can do every week. There's a few video. I do a video walkthrough. There's an animated video. Like the first week is just kind of an overview of where am I now? Because most kids will focus on the one area, and it's usually and often an area with drama or where stuff's not really working, but there's all these other areas of our life. So that's kind of how we start. And then we do values and strengths, and we do a deep dive into friendships. And so they can do it on their own. They could do it with their parent. They could do it with another friend. And then I'm going to have calls to like solidify that, because a lot of parents will come to me and say, I wish my kid was more confident. I wish they'd stand up for themselves. It's hard for a teen to be confident if they don't believe in themselves. And it's hard to believe in themselves if they don't really know themselves and they don't have that awareness really of who they are, of what's going on, of what their strengths are, of what's important to them. And so module 1 kind of starts kind of like, who the heck am I? And I think it's really, I'm like super excited about it. I think it's really powerful. That's what I was talking about at the beginning with my business. I would love to get, and it's my goal for like 2023 into 2024 to have like an ongoing teen group where we talk about not only this, but like anything. Like teens want to talk. They really do. And because they talk to me every week. And I, like I said, even the hardcore kids, 10 minutes into a group, they're talking because they feel safe and not judged. And it's easy for parents to judge our kids, and it's easy to compare them because we want the best. You know, like our son, he struggled with friendships, but my friend's son's kids, boys, were off there like doing the boy things, the typical that you would, you know, that you dream of when you dream of your son having all these friends and doing all these activities. And our son was a loner. He's a gamer. Like, I mean, he's 24 now, so he actually works and lives on his own. Yeah, good. That's when he was the happiest, you know, but it took time for us to accept that and be like, we would hear him downstairs on his video games, like laughing and just having fun. Yeah. And we're like, you know what? That's his thing. That's where he's comfortable. And that is his social outlet, because he does have Asperger's and ADHD. So he still is uncomfortable in big social settings. And so we had to accept that as a parent, that when he's gaming, he's like so happy. So that's all you really want for your kids. So sometimes as a parents, we have to dig into that acceptance of our kids, because kids are different. Our 3 kids are all completely different kids. Crazy, right? When if you think about it, you raise kids in the same home and they're completely different personalities. Like, it's kind of fun because we do have 3 different personalities.
Yeah.
But some of that is acceptance as parents. We have to accept our kids' differences and that we don't control them. They're on their own journey too, and that's okay. And their journey might not look like we wanted to. We dreamed it would look, but it's okay because it's their journey. And when Nick was going through all his stuff and had our family in chaos, all I ever said to myself was, and he was like 17 or 18, but my mantra, and all my friends know this, one day Nick is going to be a fine young man. And that's all I said. When he's in his mid-20s, he's going to be a fine young man. And that's how I got through it, because I knew I didn't have control, and we were doing everything we could to support him as a parents, but ultimately it was his journey. So by the time Nick's in his mid-20s, he's going to be a fine young man. And he is. He's 24. He didn't go to college. School wasn't his thing, but he has a full-time job. He goes to work every day, and he's out of the house.
Yes, game in your own room.
Yes, he is. Oh, so once he left, his room was very quickly turned into my husband's office. We're like, yeah, you're not coming back, Nick. And we joke about it with him. He was over yesterday. He's like, what if I move back in? We're like, no, there's no space for you, dude.
There's no space for you. We already have a computer. No room for another.
Yeah, you're 24. You're good to go. Hey, keep it going. But yeah, there's like, it's raising teens and tweens is hard. And it's a two-way street. And sometimes they need to do the work. Sometimes we need to do the work. Sometimes we need to do the work together. It's all okay, but it's all doable.
I like that you had mentioned a podcast. And the way that you have answered questions, I can tell that you love podcasting and that it comes very natural to you. And since this is about amplifying your message, I do like to highlight the different ways that you like to share your message based on who you are. So podcasting, yeah, I was like, if you don't have a podcast, why don't you? Like that's very much you.
Yeah.
What other
No.
ways
Yeah.
do you share?
Yeah. My podcast, it's called the Empowered Parent Podcast with Renee. I think there's another Empowered Parent Podcast, which I didn't know at the time. So mine has with Renee.
Okay.
Every episode is literally 15 minutes or less because I know how busy everyone is. I don't interview anyone. I just get on and talk about maybe something that came, like if I'm talking to a teen and something comes up, I'll be like, oh, I need to do a podcast on this. So every podcast is, I should say 20 minutes or less. Some of them are 10 minutes, but none of them I don't think are more than 20 minutes. They're relevant, they're timely, they're actionable. So every episode, you're going to get something out of it that you could put into action right away. So that is the Empowered Parent Podcast with Renee. It's pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
And my website is teenesteamacademy.com.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I mean, you can pretty much find me. I had so much content on my Facebook and I was hacked like 2 months ago and I lost 2 years of content.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So I hardly have any Facebook. I'm like, my assistant is helping with Facebook, but I'm kind of over it at this point. It was 2 years of content completely gone. I had a Facebook group with like 1,300 members. It's still there, but it's attached to my hacked account. So I can't do anything with it. I can't even post in it. It's just sitting there. And I think that original group is going to disappear soon, like whenever they permanently disable me. And you can't get a hold of anyone at Facebook. Like
No.
I've tried everything. So that account is gone. So if you look me up on Facebook, you'll find me, but my group is small. I'm not doing as much. I'm kind of over it. And so I am there, and you can reach me there. But and if you go to my website, actually, I have to check it. If you go to my website, there's a chat thing. You can send me a message. I actually have to make sure it goes to my current Facebook and not my old one. And then my email's on there. But yeah, I mean, you can, and I also have information on my podcast. I mean, and it really, if you look up my name, stuff comes up. So you'll find stuff. But yeah, that's where, but the podcast is a great place to start because everything's so short, like 15, 20 minutes or less. Pick a topic that's interesting to you and you should get something out of it.
Nice. I'm also thinking, should I just send my teen there? It's like she likes to watch the reels, the short form content. It's like, just go learn on your own.
You could, but it's more for
the parents.
I mean, it's called the Empowered Parent Podcast because it's for parents. I mean, that's an idea though. I could do a podcast for teens. I don't have the bandwidth to do that right now, but maybe I'll back burner that for another year because I have the content, but I don't have the bandwidth right now within my own brain to do a podcast for teens at the moment. I'd like to get a group for teens because I would actually that's my biggest end game goal, to have a group for teens. And I do have a group for parents too. It's called Mindset Mastery. And I do that with parents. It's small. I just started, but we do that every Tuesday morning. And then attached to that is another group for parents where parents can ask me anything about their teens. Nice. So those are ongoing. They're just smaller because I'm transitioning into more of a group format versus one-on-one. I do still have a few families I work with, but I really would like to reach more people because I know that the need is there and I love it. And I was a teacher, so I love doing podcasts because I love teaching. So I love doing podcasts. I love this kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, I'll get on and talk teen to anybody.
Yep. So I have 2 questions before we go. It is 2:00, so I'm trying to be mindful of time. But we did start a couple minutes early. First question is, you had mentioned that you were right there with that project, just right there. So first question is, what is it that you need to help you get there? And if any of our listeners can help, please reach out to Renee. Collaborations are wonderful. Is there something that you need to help you get there?
So my Teen Esteem Activator course, I think I really, really believe it's going to be a game changer once I get that going. And because I know how busy everyone is, again, kids can do that. And I have a link for that, but kids can do that on their own time. I would like to have my goal is to get that set up. So we're maybe twice a month I have calls, but right now I have 6 calls set up for July and August. 4 of them are teen and 2 of them are parent. And there is a founding member rate through July 4th. So that will give you all 3 modules for the price of 1 module in the future. So it's 3 for 1 right now. And so that's the biggest thing, because, and if you're a parent listening and you have especially like a tween, because they're going to be more open to maybe doing it with you, it would be, you could literally do it with your teen. It isn't time consuming and it's powerful. And we have those group calls coming up in July and August. And so that's what I want to get out. So that is my number 1 as far as getting that out, and no guarantees if it's going to work. And I think it will. I'd actually like to get it into schools. Honestly, like that's my end game goal. Like, let me sell this to schools where teachers can do this, because they're with the kids every day. So that's long term. And then, so that's that question. And what was your other one?
So the last question is I just wanted to make sure that if there was something that you wanted to say before we left, that you had a chance to say it. So was there anything that you wanted to add before we say goodbye?
I mean, I don't think other than if your child is struggling or if you are struggling, just reach out. Like, there's no shame in reaching out. Everyone deserves to be happy and feel good about who they are, whether it's a parent or a teen or adult. You don't have to suffer through it. There's support in whoever that is. Like, if you want coaching support, you want therapy, if you want a friend, like, don't go through it alone, because there's so many people out there going through the same thing. I was a parent that went through it, and I was in teen world, and we still went through it. And so there's literally no shame. A lot of parents feel like if their kid's different or struggling, they don't want to talk about it and no one will understand. Well, maybe your friends don't understand, but there are people out there that understand.
Yes, definitely.
Right. And so, yeah, don't struggle. Just say, like, go for it. Like, don't feel any shame or embarrassment, or like, this is life. Life is a journey, and everyone deserves to feel good about who they are, and no one deserves to make us feel less, including our own mindset. So sometimes it's a mindset shift within us.
See, now I just want to sing "Life is a Highway."
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Right.
this was great, Renee. I want to say thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, all of our viewers, for joining us. I'm going to stick you in the back room. And if you want to stay and chat for a couple minutes after, you're more than welcome. But I'm just going to say goodbye to everybody. So you gave us your websites and your Facebook and stuff. Are you on Instagram?
I am. And now I am, and I am more now. I think I have more content on Instagram than YouTube now. Okay. And I think I'm under Teen Coach Renee on Instagram. I'm also on YouTube. I'm starting to get my podcasts up on YouTube, but they're not all up there. And my assistant just put me on Pinterest, though I know nothing about Pinterest, but I think I'm a little bit on Pinterest now.
A little bit. Okay.
A little bit, but
so we know where to find you.
Yeah.
Well, then, thank you so much. And I will chat with you in a couple minutes. See you in the backstage.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Whew, okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for day 1 of the Blue Talks Amplifier message. Today was a little more focused on like the human beings behind all of our messages. Tomorrow, I'd love to play a little bit more in that space of what are the different ways the people are sharing their message. Are they authors? Are they podcasters? Are they speakers? Do they do crazy things that we never would have thought of? There's all kinds of ideas. So let's play in that space tomorrow. And if you have ideas for intro questions that are playful like me, I would love to hear them. You can send me a message. It's all good. Tomorrow we are starting on time, which is 11 a.m. Atlantic or 10 a.m. Eastern. Same places. We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube. But I will see you same bat channel, same bat time. Much love, everyone. And I will see you tomorrow. Bye.